All right, so we have a quick story to tell before we get started with this last panel. Melinda and I have been working on this conference since late March. Initially, we're going to, in full transparency, we're looking at doing a conference in June. Then it was like, that's too much going on in this short period of time frame.
I don't know why we thought we could do that.
Yeah, and then we decided to push it back to September, and now we're here. We reached out to probably 10 plus CEOs of what we call unicorn startups, which of course are all white males, not all, but most of all white males. Again, I love my white male allies. This is true data. Yeah. We started about 10 white male startup CEOs, and this happened to be a weekend where all of them are traveling.
Most of them in Europe for some reason. There's a whole bunch of white unicorn CEOs in Europe right now.
Yeah, and we really wanted participation from CEOs, right, of tech startups. I'm not going to call any names because some of them, yes, some do live out the country. Some have publicly stated the work how they care about diversity and inclusion. Some just said they couldn't make it. And we also know that some, was like, it's diversity, inclusion, conversation, first time conference. I'm not sure if I want to be the white male CEO and on stage and talking about diversity.
And I also think it had a lot to do with prioritizing. We all here are prioritizing this moment, and I think there were a lot of people that was not their priority. And so that's one of the things that we want to change, right? That's one of the reasons why we're having the allies conversations here, both the workshop and the panel discussion around that. But we have a long way to go still.
Yes.
We learned that.
Totally. And with that, so earlier today we mentioned that we want to do a mini, like an unconference style, individuals to, if they want to give a talk, put it on the whiteboard, put it on signs outside. We didn't get a lot of participation, it's okay, because some people was like, I'm not sure if I'm ready to go on stage, which we totally get. So what we decided to do, I saw some allies and some colleagues in the audience, and we asked would they participate on a closing panel with us today, and we'd like to bring them on stage.
Awesome.
Cool. All right, bring them on stage. If you give them a hand. Awesome. All right, so we can start with our left, my left. Jen, if you could do an introduction of yourself.
Yeah, sure. I'm Jen Milo. I work at Automatic, one of the sponsors. I work on the WordPress project, and I spent the first, 4.5 years there solely on the open source project. The first 4 were doing user experience on the core team, and then I spent about 2 years focusing purely on community development with a focus on diversity. So getting more women into the project, including in the developer groups, and creating more opportunities with travel scholarships and stuff like that to get people who might not otherwise be able to participate a seat at the table to be part of the conversation. And so I'm still doing that. But recently, Matt, who is our CEO, who probably is traveling, recently said I could take 20% of my regular job and focus on diversity and inclusion for our company, which I traditionally haven't really touched. I focused on the open source project. So that's why I came, to learn stuff and see what people are doing well, because I think we have a long way to go. But we've done some stuff that has been cool. And so when Wayne said, will you talk about it, I said, sure.
Awesome. Thank you. All right.
I'm Michelle Glauser. I did Hackbright Academy 3 years ago. It's an engineering school for women in San Francisco. I'm working at Zana.io now, which is a platform to teach people how to be successful entrepreneurs. And I've been working on the I Look Like an Engineer billboard campaign. The billboards are going up next week. Yay!
Awesome.
And I'm also working on workshops in the Tenderloin for people there to learn software engineering.
Tracy? Sorry, Leslie.
Hi, I'm Leslie. Finished my PhD at Stanford last year.
All right. Might get a hand here.
Hi, I'm Leslie. I finished my PhD at Stanford last year in computer science. Since then,
Can we get a hand?
Hand now, Mike.
We try to look cool up here with the lapels, you know. All right, here we go.
Hello?
There we go. Yay!
I'm Leslie. Finished my PhD in computer science last year with a focus in medical human-computer interaction. Since then, I've worked at a few startups in the commerce and health spaces. And I'm here because I started my own company over the summer and was looking to learn and grow as a diverse entrepreneur.
Hello? Hello? Yeah. Okay. How's it going, y'all? My name is Darryl Jones III, and I'm leading up business development for a startup called Clef out in the East Bay. I'm here because a little while ago, with the help of Cedric Brown, we threw the Oakland Summit on Blacks in Tech, which was very much aimed at seeing as how we could create a kind of diverse tech ecosystem in Oakland. Outside of that, I've also been working on kind of like an underground initiative called the Tech Equity Collaborative, such that we can create an integrated ecosystem within Oakland to address the digital equity crisis, and wanted to see if there are folks out here who are interested in working towards that, I guess, problem, but fixing that with a solution now in the East Bay.
Awesome, awesome. So
So one of the reasons why we brought this group together is because we're all learning. We're all at different stages of this. I was talking to LaFawn Bailey earlier today about how she's been working on this for a long time, but even doesn't feel like she's an expert because there's so much to learn and there's so much that we can share with each other. And this is a combined learning experience.
Totally, totally. And with that being said, we want to ask our panelists, and then we're going to really open up Q&A because we also want to make this a collaborative session. What were some of the takeaways that you learned from today? Put you in the spot there, right? Be ready. Always be ready. Yes.
Yep.
My man Leslie, I'm not sure if you're in the crowd right now, but I really appreciate you saying, you know what, sometimes you just got to let your coworkers know that you're black. You know, like, hey, you know, I don't know if you knew this about me, but I'm black. Yeah, there are a lot of structural things that we can talk about, but anecdotally and personally, that just hit me, and it really spoke to me. Someone, man, Leslie, like that's like a big personal thing that I'm gonna take away. And when I go back on Fridays, we play music out loud. I'm like, I'm fucking putting my Drake on, and I'm playing it loud because I like it. But you know, and if you know we do have an inclusive workforce and an environment there that's really accepting, I'll be like, you know what? I may not fuck with Drake like that, but I accept you. Just turn it down next time. That's just...
Yeah, that actually hit me as well, because so often when you're the only person in the room, you hide a lot of your own personality. You hold a lot of that back, and I think that's a big part of us, that's partly a healing process too. Inclusion is not just about other people around us, but it's also about us healing each other and saying it's okay to be ourselves, I think.
Totally, totally.
I really enjoyed listening to the panels from the diverse engineer and diverse entrepreneurs. And one of the quotes I got from the last session on female founders that I enjoyed was that as a female founder, it helps to, or as any kind of founder, any person, it helps to have enough ego to be both vulnerable and confident. And it made me think about what it means to kind of include myself, include others, in that you want to strive for both authenticity and vulnerability, but also confidence in how you, like, where you came from and who you are and what you want to bring to the world.
Cool.
Awesome.
Michelle?
I went first the last time.
There's so many things. Mostly, I feel like being in a community like this, you get the feeling that you're not alone, and it's normal, and it's okay to speak up when you are feeling alone. And I think that has a lot to do with the I Look Like an Engineer campaign, because it's all about making awareness and normalization and inspiration. But the fact that I've heard so many people who are confident without apology today, especially women who are labeled as aggressive sometimes when that happens, is really inspiring to me.
I get labeled aggressive all the time. And a troublemaker, and yeah, I got in trouble just last week, in fact, for calling someone out on a sexist comment. And so I really appreciated in the ally panel that was filled with men, that one of them, the man from Techstars, said, the worst problem we have is not calling people out. It's not necessarily numbers. It's not necessarily like not calling things out when they happen is the worst problem, because then, you know, that's seen, and that's, you know, silence implies that you accept it. So it was really reassuring to me. I mean, he even went a little further than I would. He's like, go ahead and burn that bridge. You don't need them. A lot of people want to keep their jobs. So, but trying to find how you balance that line between calling someone out and then being accused of publicly shaming them. That is what happened to me. Even though I tried really hard not to, I tried to be nice. And then, you know, kind of how do you come up with a culture for your company that you can put in writing? I mean, we have a lot of international employees. They're all over the world. And it's not just a culture shock. I grew up in Oakland. I grew up in, you know, Nob Hill. It's this person lives in India and family has nothing. This person lives in Norway. This person lives in Japan. And when someone says, oh, it's not just that I didn't mean it that way. My culture, this is normal. Like, we have that problem kind of a lot. Like, we have people in South Africa, like everywhere. We don't have an office. We're all remote. So how do you codify what's okay? Because in another session, someone said, you know, the whole point is you want people to feel comfortable being their whole authentic selves. And that was such a beautiful statement. Like, what about the people whose authentic selves are not so great? Like, what about the people? Like, we have some people who either their religion thinks, you know, being gay is a sin, or maybe they come from a country where interracial marriage is not okay. I mean, there are cultural norms that make me really uncomfortable, but that's part of their culture. So as I am fighting, and many of you are fighting for how do we kind of bring these marginalized groups into a place where they're accepted and normal within a company culture, how do you do that without also saying anyone who's not marginalized is not welcome? So, like, how far do we take welcoming? Like, it has to mean something, and that's something we've been struggling a lot with. And so hearing all the different perspectives today has been really great.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah.
I would like to ask some of the audience members that question and then move on to the next question. Do we have mic runners out there? Okay, so we have a couple of mic runners. What have you all learned today? What has been like a moment where you just said, aha, and you're actually going to create some kind of change in the way you do things? Right behind you.
I think from one of the early presentations, maybe the first panel, it was someone said, hey, one of the things we provide is just like a safe space for people to ask questions. And maybe that was obvious, but that was something that I was like, yeah, that's something we can bring at council where we're smaller to offer to people to try to start making diversity happen better there.
Awesome. Anyone else?
All right, come on, y'all. I know you've been learning. There we go.
Well, I think for me, some of the connections I made were really awesome. I came in a minute late. I feel like someone was saying Oakland up there was, no? Yeah, so I met some awesome people who also live in Oakland who want to make change there. And so just like connecting with people that are like, let's get coffee, you know, next week, and we're gonna meet up with Conda and, you know, all these different things to take after here, because that's what matters, right? Is like, we can talk all day, but we have to take it out of here and make changes. So actually meeting those people to go do that has been awesome.
Yeah. Then we had got it. Front?
Oh, right here.
Right here?
Yeah.
Hi, so what I took away was I come from LA, so I didn't think it was that easy to just go up and talk to people in tech. So I just moved here like 9 months ago. So for me, it was a aha moment, like when somebody from Yelp earlier said that, oh, I've been at Yelp for 10 months and no one from the disability community has ever reached out to me. I was like, really? I didn't think that was not happening, so good to know.
Right.
Thank you.
Back in the front, we have a guy in the back. So 2 in the front, 1 in the back.
For me, like, my aha moment was like, I think it was Leslie when they said that it's good to try to build like a support network. You know, like, I mean, I have like a degree in business management and I'm also learning development, but like sometimes it's hard to find that network, and like I'm learning to like try to build that. You know, like that was my aha moment.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm Nancy. I was hosting the panel for the white allies. And I think for me, being on the panel, what was a moment for me was how we need to be more disruptive in this industry. That it's not enough to say things like, oh, we have maternity leave and little things that are wins. We need to make some big wins, and what do we need to do to disrupt the industry and create bigger wins for our community? I don't think this needs to be a slow growth and then eventually folks will get it. I think we need to do something now. Thank you.
I agree 100%.
Can I ask you a follow-up question? Do you have any idea today what that is?
I'm sorry I didn't catch your name, but I think it is about being vocal and trying to create environments where if enough of us are speaking about it, they can't fire us all. Do you know what I mean? I'm serious, they can't.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like if we can get all the women together to say, let's do something about this and see what they do, it would be something if they could fire us all, right?
Yeah.
And so I really think it is something to get our communities together, to know that together we have some strength, you know, get our allies together with us, and that's what's disruptive. I think that it is something noticeable when you can get all of us in a space and say, this is a problem to all of us, do something. And if you don't do something, we're just gonna keep making noise about it. And then, I mean, media, apparently a lot of folks don't like that kind of attention. So I think that that's what's been working, is trying to get media attention as well on these things so that we can start creating change. At least that's the things that I see that actually cause the fastest change.
Awesome.
That's an interesting point. And it's disappointing to hear, but it's true. It's that you almost have to bring up the conversation of that you don't want negative press to create change. But for this conversation, that's unfortunately a lot how it influences whether someone, or most of the time a CEO, or in the marketing department decides, okay, we want to do something, we want to put out a statement because we don't want that negative press. So it's something, it's something we need to think about in terms of strategically to like make change and impact.
Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me? So my name is Marvin Carr. I'm a member of Barack Obama, White House CTO. So I work in the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. The greatest thing I got today was the conversation about, to say in other words, whitewashing ourselves in order to be inclusive. And one thing I didn't hear that I often don't hear is a definition of what is diversity. So sorry to be the academic techie in the room. There's a great article by Corey Baker. He's a PhD from, it's an ASEE, he's a PhD from Florida State. And so the entire article is about the fact that Silicon Valley was underrepresented by white men. And his statistics were correct, 100%. And he defined diversity in two ways, by population parity and by degree parity. And he showed that at each Silicon Valley company, white men were underrepresented by both degree parity and population parity. And just the way that can be used by so many people who are against this movement to kind of prove, and that's used and quoted time and time again. The important thing is what is diversity? How do we measure it? What is diversity? How do we measure it? And how, there's so much data can be used for it or against it. And so I think defining diversity doesn't have to be with numbers, but it can be qualitatively. It's something important that I would love to, at some point, touch on.
Yeah, there's actually a panel tomorrow on that very subject. Yeah. One more, Linda, do you, good.
We'll do these two next.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. My name is Maggie Malone, and I'm from Hartnell College in Salinas. And I have two things. One, I thought I was here to learn, that I was going to go away with a lot of knowledge. And I realized that I have learned, but I've also contributed to others by realizing that what we're doing in Salinas is a little ahead of the curve, which I'm very impressed or shocked, because here I come from a very rural community of farm worker students, and we're doing things down there that are not happening here. So I'm taking away the fact that I'm contributing and not only learning. And the second thing is that I would like to see the word inclusion everywhere, not just in tech. Hopefully the conversation about inclusion happens in different areas.
Awesome.
Great.
Thanks. I'm Linda, and I wanted to pick up on Nancy's comment, my new best friend forever. And we were on a panel together at Twitter a couple of weeks ago, but I was sitting in a meeting somewhat like this on diversity in tech, and there was a panel in front, and this young African-American man made a comment that basically boiled down to, you have to go along to get along. And I was sitting there, and my stomach was just heaving, and because I was trying not to say something, but of course I had to say something because I could not believe that that was the message he was giving the people in the room, which was to submerge the person he was in order to stick around and keep their job. So anyone who knows me knows I haven't stuck around through that at any place that I've ever been, including Google. And so, you know, you have to, in order to be the CEO of your career, you have to be feeling empowered enough not to care about the job and not identify yourself with the place you work for, so that you feel you can speak up. And a lot of people, you know, aren't comfortable speaking up because they really need that job, so they can't, they could try to fire all of us, actually. But quiet as it's kept. So I just wanted to say, you know, whatever it takes to help you feel, you know, emboldened enough and sure of yourself enough, and to be careful how you choose your words, as I say to my son. But that's what we have to learn how to do. And we have to teach each other how to do that so that we feel like, look, I got your back. Go forward, I got your back. So anyway, I wanted to say that.
Awesome, thank you. Awesome.
So we'll go back to the panel here for a minute. One of the things that I saw on the feedback board back there in the hallway is that we needed more actionable steps, more steps that any of us can take. And so what we wanted to ask next is, what kind of steps are you taking in your own communities to be more inclusive, to really work not only on diversity, which is kind of bringing people into a space, but on creating that center of inclusion, which is inviting them to speak and to lead?
Yeah, so, Darryl?
So one of our company values is actually fight the default of exclusivity. I know, like what? Yeah, go to the website, you can check. You can check that out. And that sets a framework for us. It sets a foundation from which we all, as an organization, are going to do what we can to contribute to that. So what does that look like tangibly? Well, outside of working on the summit, one of the things that we started working on was this tech equity initiative in Oakland. This is kind of like a low-key, just like behind-the-scenes thing, not really being too loud about it. But what we're trying to do is create an integrated tech ecosystem within Oakland, whereby we take the pipeline that's currently existing, all the different folks working on exposure, education, employment, and entrepreneurship. You know, Kalima, Hack the Hood, Susan, you're in here somewhere doing great work. Telegraph, employment, and then eventually entrepreneurship, and actually form linkages and bridges between those different entities to make sure that they're all contributing to one another's success, both downstream students and upstream students, and moving forward like that. We've been working on that for 7 months with the Urban Strategies Council, Bruce Buckaloo of Oakland, and a few other people with the mayor's office. And it's something that I care deeply about, that, again, it's been kind of behind the scenes. But that's something that we do kind of externally as a company, is try and make Oakland a more inclusive, representative, and community-driven tech scene. You know, a scene that we all wish San Francisco could be, but due to unfortunate circumstances, doesn't have a chance in hell. And so we think Oakland is that place to fight that fight. And externally, that's what we're doing to fight that fight. Now, Melinda, to your point of internally, of creating that inclusive environment that's actually, you know, going to keep people around and attract them. Even though we were a small startup, you know, we've got like 8 people, we budgeted an allocation of our seed funding for a diversity consultant. Yeah, we brought on Ash Dryden for a bit to help us kind of figure out, so what does this word inclusion mean? What does it look like internally? And so that's been helpful for us. I think no one is too good to seek the advice of someone that does this for a living. So there are some great diversity consultants out there, Ash Dryden being one of them, that you can go and they can help you out. So that's something that we've done internally. And you know, although I lead up business development, the very fact that I'm able to kind of work with the community and try and build this tech equity collaborative is a testament to how we are trying to empower people to enact change within the company and outside the company, and trying to form a model for tech companies within Oakland, generally speaking, such that we have tech companies there who are committed to being in a community and not just kind of a community, taking Ubers and caviars and all that stuff, but really fighting that good fight. So that's something that we're working on.
Awesome. Thanks.
I feel like I work towards that by attending a lot of events and networking with people, like Daryl said. But also, for the last 3 years, I've had an open source spreadsheet of ways to learn to code, whether that's paid, very expensive boot camps or free workshops or what have you. And it grows all the time. I'm still adding to it. And I try to spread articles on Twitter and Facebook and with people I know just to bring attention to the issues. And I write about those issues as well on my blog and on Medium. And I'm very much an advocate for educating people about what it's like to join tech when you never considered that as an option, because that's what happened for me. And I wish that I had known about the options in tech earlier. So I try to answer any questions people have about what you can do in tech and how you can get there.
One of the things that I'm hearing is that inclusion is a discovery process, that it's not something that you can just learn. You can't just go to school and learn inclusion. It's something that you discover both externally and internally. You're both a teacher and you're a student, both, I think. Interesting.
Something I've been thinking about recently was what it means to kind of lean in different ways. So what does it mean to lean into feeling uncomfortable or feeling discomfort? And one of the things I got from the panel on being an ally is that discomfort is not necessarily a bad thing. And so I've been thinking about how can I have uncomfortable conversations? How can I be visible in ways that maybe I'm not necessarily ready to be visible in? And I think having a place like this, it's great to just have these conversations. It's a way to bring up, what does it mean to talk about disability or gender politics or class and race inclusion? I think now that you guys are here, as leaders, you can kind of lead from the front and have these conversations with your co-founders, your investors, your friends, and hopefully just kind of start talking and start disrupting, as others have said.
Awesome.
Let's see, so it was outreach and then internal, yes? Okay, so the outward part, it seems like we're all doing the outward part first because it's easier. I also have traditionally gone to a lot of events. I think I met Wayne at a WordCamp once upon a year ago.
Back in the day.
Several years ago, other side of the country maybe. And specifically because I was working at that time on wanting to get more people onto the core development team who weren't white dudes, which is what they all were when I joined it. I sought out women who attended development sessions and people who didn't look like all the white dudes who were giving the sessions. And I would talk to them and be like, hey, you're in this session. Why? And they'd be like, because I'm interested in development. I'm like, great. Do you know about open source projects and how you can be part of the team? And basically, first 2 years kind of handheld a lot of people into, no, this is really a space for you, because they weren't seeing anyone like them when they would go to these conferences. And so I was speaking at a lot of conferences, and then we started getting more women, and they would say, oh, it's because I saw a woman on stage at a WordCamp. And so that made me think there was a place for me, and that theme has come up in a number of these panels. When you see someone who looks like you or shares one of your interests or identities, that makes you feel like that's okay there. And so as we started getting more people contributing who belong to various groups other than white dudes, more people felt like they could contribute. And so we got more people. And it's hard, though, because even if you have more people contributing who don't all look the same, if someone's been a lead developer for 5 years and the choice is between the lead developer who's been the lead developer for 5 years and the new person who's gotten a couple of cool patches in but doesn't really have that reputation, when you were talking this morning about it's not a choice of lowering the bar, like you just widen the pool, but it kind of, when you're talking about these conferences where you only have 6 speaking slots as opposed to 120, for example, because these are all volunteer run, no one gets paid to do any of this work, so it's all this labor of love. Like, they really want to meet the lead developer, including the people who made the patches. So we've been working with organizing teams about, no, seriously, this is why it's really important that your speaker role is a little more diverse. And we got so much pushback on that being hard, so we're like, okay, your organizing team needs to be diverse because then your speaker roles will be diverse and then your attendees will be diverse and then everything will be wonderful. And that, when it happens, is true. When it doesn't happen, the audience looks very much like the organizing team, and we've been tracking that over the last 2 years, and so when we can say, no, look, seriously, we mean it, and this is why, and not just in terms of marginalized groups, but even people who aren't PHP developers. What about the designers? What about the people who are doing front-end stuff? Do they feel like they're marginalized within the development community? So basically trying to find people who do it, bring them in, help them sort of move up the ladder, such as it is, and make sure they get on stage, and that if they write an article or a post, that it gets, publicized by the people who do have, the 5 years worth of clout, so that we can kind of broaden the field. And that's been kind of the biggest thing. Also travel scholarships, again, that's just been, it's a really big deal. Like if you're a mom with a bunch of kids, if you are supporting a family, whatever your situation, if you're international and it will cost you $1,800 to fly to a conference, like, it's not something you can do. So just trying to get them to those places where they can make those connections and be part of the crowd has been important. Internally for our company, I was in the session on the employee resource groups. We don't have employee resource groups, but we have birds of a feather groups that are not official things that HR decided needed to happen, but that people just kind of created. So we have one for women, we have one for LGBT people, there's one for people with mental health stuff, and so they've been creating some groups there. Some of our HR policies are friendlier to people with different backgrounds, I think, than a lot of other companies. And then because we're remote, we have people all over the world, so the flexibility that we have offers people a lot of options when it comes to creating a work-life balance or a workflow that works for them. So if they want to work in the middle of the night, like, we don't really care when you work as long as the work gets done. And most of our stuff is asynchronous. So it makes it a lot easier for someone who, say we're talking about someone with serious anxiety. I saw some of the tweets were like, how far do you push someone with a mental health issue to get them to get the same results? Or do you accommodate the fact that they're having to work so much harder and take the great days and be okay with some of the days that maybe their numbers aren't as great? And so I think we're getting better at that, and definitely, if someone says, I need a day, in the last one someone said, I need a black day, there's stuff going on I need to deal with, like, that would be fine with us. You just talk to your team lead and say, this is what I need, and we all try to work with that. And WordPress.com, the editorial team, they do a lot on the editorial side. They do a lot of surfacing of published stuff on WordPress.com by people from various groups. I know when we were organizing a blogging conference versus a developer conference, we asked them, hey, are there any bloggers that have big followings or that you've recommended posts by? And granted, yes, there were a lot of sort of upper middle class white women in their 30s, but a lot of them were writing about, I have a transgender kid, and this is what I'm going through, and this is what my kid is going through, and it's totally private, but you should hear about this. And then people of color and people from different groups, they aren't promoting the blog posts that I see getting promoted on other networks that are just the same kind of talking heads. They're taking regular people and trying to elevate them, which I think is good.
Awesome.
Cool. Great.
Sorry, she reminded me, I didn't go over the internal stuff, so I'll say that really quick. So Zana.io is still pretty small. We only have 5 people, but we are a pretty diverse team, and the founder was a VC for 12 years, so she's passionate about seeing more diverse entrepreneurs. And the Bechdel test, she started something called the Didana test, which basically checks startups to see if they pass her test, if they have enough diversity in their management team. So.
Does everybody know what the Bechdel test is?
Bechdel wellness test now.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Did everyone know? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Bechdel test is like this movie test to see how included women are in movies, basically. I think
it was started by a comic originally.
Right.
Yeah.
So two women have to talk to each other about something other than a man, I think, are the requirements.
They have to have more than one woman has to have a speaking role. At least two women have to talk to each other, and they have to talk to each other about something other than a man.
And it's so hard to find a movie that passes that. Yeah.
I think video games are probably along those lines.
Yeah.
Well, I want to share before we wrap up a couple comments that was made that reminded me. Like, some people asked, we've been interviewed a lot about this conference and talking about what we want everyone to get out of it. And my answer has been that if every single person here learns one single thing that they can do and they execute on that one single task, we will change the world, right? But we all have to learn one single thing and execute on it, right? And it's not like you take it to the CEO or you take it to your HR team and suggest it and see if it happens. No, this is, you have to do that one single thing. So I challenge everyone in the room to do one single thing and execute on it from what they learned here or from a conversation in the hallway, and do that. And then secondly, about the speakers that we have. We have, again, over 120 speakers, one of the most diverse conferences ever, tech conferences ever. And I will say after this conference, there's no excuses. There's zero excuses to not have a diverse lineup. Not to have African Americans, not to have Latino, not to have women, zero. And part of what we all said and we heard is that we have to speak up about it. We really have to call out conference organizers. I was looking at one venture conference that's coming up in New York. I went to the speaker page and it's like, see our previous speakers. And it was all white. Everybody was white, but it was a couple white women because, but there was zero African American, right? And then, or Latino. And then TechCrunch, I'm not picking on TechCrunch, I love them. We got Megan coming tomorrow, but we can use them as an example. Last year at TechCrunch Disrupt, there was
learning.
Yeah, they're learning. They launched the Include program. I love that. I know our staff over there, but there was zero African American people on stage at TechCrunch Disrupt in terms of a speaker or judging role last year. Now this year they have Troy Carter and they have Andre Iguodala from the Golden State Warriors. So we have two this year. But we have to do better than that. And it doesn't lower the bar when we have inclusion, we have diverse speakers. And we have to speak up on that. And then lastly, as another part of this whole ecosystem in tech and business in general, it's all about relationships. And we know that. It's about who you know, who you trust, who you like doing business with. It works it's increased 10x here in tech in Silicon Valley. And so we have to create networks, right? Daryl is part of a group that Brian Martinez and a couple other guys here in Silicon Valley we created called Black Men in Tech. It's a Slack group. We're about 120 black guys, right? There's a black guy in Cleveland, Ohio, who's part of that group. He's in tech. He's like a growth hacker. He made a comment. He said, wow, I didn't know there was this many black guys that worked at Facebook or Google or Square or Twitter. He was like, I didn't know. Because if you don't live here and you read all the news, the press, you would think there's zero. Because all you see is the founders. And we know what that looked like. So we have to create networks. We have to build bridges. We have to execute. And in my opinion, that's how we change the world and change the tech ecosystem.
And when we change the tech ecosystem, we change the world.
Yeah.
Because this is one of the big centers of the world economy.
Yeah. So with that being said, happy hour upstairs. Enjoy. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you, our panelists.